Добрый день.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I hope that our mic is working. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm glad that everything is working. Today it is quite late already, but still I can see here a lot of participants. I think that our topic is also quite interesting. Subfederal debt market. My name is Yaroslav Lisavolik, and within the framework of our discussion, we'll discuss different aspects of this market segment development, budget innovations which were adopted lately, and they will come into force within next year, and also development of this market, its prospects, appearance of new tools which will enhance dynamics of this market segment share. For the discussion of this topic today, we invited the leading specialists and experts in the financial markets. Konstantin Bushkovsky, Director, Department of State Debt and State Financial Assets, Ministry of Finance of the Russian Federation. Ekaterina Zinovьeva, First Deputy Minister of Economy and Finance of the Moscow Oblast. Anna Kuznetsova, Managing Director for Stock Market, Member of the Management Board, Moscow Stock Exchange. Elena Chaikovskaya, Advisor to the First Deputy Chairman of the Bank of Russia. And also Denis Shulakov, First Vice President, Gazprom Bank. And the first question, so I would like to ask Konstantin, in the name of our session, we say that we're waiting for change, and I would like to ask you with this question. So those changes which have been made to the budget code, do they mean that the debt burden will change in the regions? And how will this process influence on that policy of the regions? What are these innovations about? Thank you very much. Good evening, dear colleagues. Yes, we can see the topic of our panel, and we decided to name it like this. Maybe because in the sphere of the state debt, of the sovereign debt, we also want to see here regional debt. But the situation in the sphere is a concern for us. I mean, the federal authorities and the Ministry of Finance. I think also the central bank of Russia. The budget code has been adopted in 2000, and since then it has not been changed much. But still, life goes always, ahead. And we can see that the market of securities has also been modernized, also became a part and parcel of international market. And for us, it became evident that we need to reconsider the budget code articles concerning subfederal debt. I can set an example here. Till these changes in the budget code, there was a very strange notion. Bonds allocated outside Russia. Under the condition of integration, where are these borders and where are these geographical restrictions? But there was a direct restriction for the regions to attract loans from foreign banks in Russian rubles. But it could be done in the banks in foreign currency, and there were a lot of other not logical things which needed change. So we can say, is it some kind of regulatory cancellations here? Yes, here they meant that this basic document, this budget basic document, had to be actualized, had to become more relevant, in tune with realities. If we speak about the market of subfederal debt, all the problems can be referred to two groups. So the first group contains risks linked with volume and structure of regional debts. Consequently, so because of the policy of the federal authorities, where expensive market debts in regions were replaced, so with high interest rates were replaced by cheap budget loans. Now the debt burden in the regions, risk of regional default declined, but still we have the problems linked with the structure of the debt in the regions, unequal schedules of payoff, also a lot of liabilities, regarding the federal budget, also short-term liabilities. And the second group, the second problem is not efficient system of regulation of subfederal borrowings. And those indicators are debt indicators of the budget code, which had to restrict redundant growth in the regions, did not work practically. Some restrictions were too soft, and the other restrictions were we did not consider some requirements. The indicator, the set of debt indicators set by the budget code was not enough for the efficient evaluation of debt stability. The budget code did not envisage one procedure of access of the subjects to the markets. And we had the paradox situation. There was the requirement about registration of some kind of debts. And speaking about market debt from banks, so bank loans, nothing was said about this. And also we reconsidered a lot of items of this article of the budget code. We managed to do this not at once, not immediately. Maybe we needed 3 years to protect this draft law at different levels. And briefly about the essence of innovations which we adopted. Here we can see best practices. We improved the system of debt stability of the subjects. We have now a wider list of debt stability indicators, threshold indicators, set threshold indicators. On the basis of introduced debt indicators, we introduced a norm of classification of all regions depending on their debt stability. Evaluation of debt stability of subjects will be defined by the Ministry of Finance. Also, will conduct classification of all regions in compliance with 3 groups. Also, will have you will be in this or that group, and it will mean different consequences. It will be the basics for having some requirements towards regions. This system, this is an innovation for us, which is aimed at, tracking of worsening of the debt situation. And timely their transfer from one group to another, from the best to the worst, for example. And also, this system is aimed at support for the regions, timely solution of debt problems without having an extreme situation. Also, I would like to take note of this, that these innovations should be perceived properly, because a new system has advantages for all regions, irrespective of their group. The subjects with high debt stability will get the highest level of freedom. They will not have this necessity to align with the regions, with Ministry of Finance, and changes mean refusal from registration of regional securities, and such regions will not have to align the programs of debt, of loans. For the subject of the middle group with the average debt stability, these subjects will have to align the programs of borrowings and state guarantees, sovereign guarantees, with the Ministry of Finances, and they have to present their main programs of that policy. And finally, regions in the worst group with a lower debt stability will make this will have these programs only within the framework of the rules aligned with Ministry of Finance. For such regions, for such regions, there will be restrictions of an access to expensive market tools, but they will have such a tool as budget loans, because recently this tool has not been used, and now we'll have the notion of called special loans. Regions will get them, when they fulfill the plans of, payability restoration. And here the programs are developing. and will give an opportunity to give such organizations cheap loans.
2020 will be a transitional year for us. All of these new norms will be fully adopted, will fully enter into force in 2021. By the end of this year, we will finalize and adopt the way we will assess debt resilience of the region. We will look at how it will correlate with the agreements that many regions have with the Ministry for Finance. They were signing those agreements when they were taking out their budget loans. Domestically, we will need to work on how various bodies and authorities will interact with each other. We will work on a mechanism to provide constituent entities of our country with loans. I'm referring to those entities who are in the third weakest group. And we will also work on the way how constituent entities will work with municipalities. Before these amendments were made to the budget code, we were taking up efforts to work actively with the region, and we still do that. For example, there is a document recommending best practices on debt. We have worked on such a document for regions, and it was made available in the end of 2015. And when any region of the Russian Federation addresses the Ministry for Finance to take out a loan on debentures, we use this document. But I'm not sure that all of the regions used this document, made use of this document, though there is a lot of useful information there. If I'm mistaken, I'll be very happy to learn about this. In any case, this type of interaction through recommendations, through providing some methodological advice, doesn't really live up to our expectations, and that is why we need making amendments to the legislation, and we also need administrative action. Why am I speaking about that? Why the previous way of interacting with the region on the topic of debt fell short of expectations, really? There are some consequences that clearly demonstrate, some conditions that clearly demonstrate that as of today, we fail to motivate, to incentivize our regions to follow best practices available out there, best practices of the Ministry of Finance. I'm not speaking about the fact that we are better than the others, but about the fact that we try to use best practices available. Now I'm moving on to the subfederal debt market. Let me state facts. Today, loans on debentures, bond issue, are used in a quite moderate manner. Most regions opt for bank loans. For example, last year, our overall debt was $1.4 billion, and bond issue only accounted for 6%. By 15 Russian regions, By the 1st of August, on the sub-federal debt market, we have bonds issued by 49 regions. By the overall size of this market is 15 times smaller than the OFZ bills or bonds market. 7 regions that are most active and most prosperous, they account for more than a half of debentures issued. And of course, we promote the idea that regular and timely bond issue creates a positive credit history of the issuer and attracts investors, fixed income investors, which helps the borrower to cut the cost. The bonds are better in terms of liquidity when compared to bank loans. And of course, timely bond issue is better than taking out loans from a limited number of creditors, which are basically major Russian banks with state participation, who buy bonds issued by our regions, and this situation doesn't really contribute to developing the regional debt market. Amendments to the budget code stipulate that a region should have a credit ranking at the level not lower than the one set by the government. That is a new condition for a market to enter for a region to enter the debt market. We believe that any region should maintain a dialogue with the actors of the debt market. They should take into account the opinions of investors when working on their debt policy. And it goes without saying that the issuer should work together with rating agencies. You can have different opinions on ratings given by rating agencies. You can believe that they're objective, you can believe that they're not. But still, the fact that a region has rating is of utmost importance for the players on the market who buy bonds and set limits depending on those ratings. The next point that I would like to share with you is as follows. The majority of the regions, when they enter bond market, the debenture market, what they want to do is they want to issue bonds with debt amortization. Unfortunately, they do not listen to us when we tell them that such debentures are of less interest to investors who prefer securities with a stated maturity, a single maturity. Of course, the regions are trying to distribute their debt pressure. This year, out of 16 regions, 16 constituent entities who addressed us to register their loans on debentures. Only a couple of them wanted to issue bonds with a single maturity date. So we call upon regions to remember that it is better to issue debentures with what we call a standard structure. You know that the Ministry of Finance is no longer working with securities with amortization, and we try to drive them away, drive them out of the market. The next important point to consider is as follows. Unlike the Ministry of Finance, you know, in my paper I have the overwhelming majority, and that is crossed out because no region is issuing its bond in the form of regular auctions, like the Ministry for Finance did it. You know, I asked my advisors to double-check that. I haven't heard of a single case of a region doing that. And I believe that is absurd when the most transparent, the most market-friendly mechanism that enables you to become as competitive as possible in terms of your debenture prices is not used by our regions. And I do hope that together with the central bank will come up with an idea on how we can make regions do that. We understand that it's pretty hard, but still, private placement, when you only work with some separate creditors and you come to an agreement with them in terms of price and so on and so forth, it doesn't really contribute to effective pricing and cutting costs of the regions who issue debentures. We believe that regular auctions should be the main way to issue bonds for every region who are responsible about their debt policy. Finally, one more problem that I cannot but speak about is the fact that in Russia we're lacking secondary market of regional bond debt. For example, last year the turnover was less than 5% of the size of OFZ bonds secondary market. Why is that? Bonds are issued not in a competitive environment. We have, by the way, here with us a representative of one of the state-owned banks, and I do hope he will dwell on why it happens, why we see this happening when regions basically issue these quasi-bonds. Because it doesn't contribute to the development of the market, and we even cannot speak about regional bonds being liquid, because investors do not have an opportunity to quickly buy or sell these debentures and to use the situation, the current situation on the market. I'm about to wrap up my remarks by saying that in the future we'll focus on motivating the constituent entities of our country to work in order to create an effective debt market. We would like them to work to make bond prices transparent, to work together with investors in order to understand and to take into account investors' interests when working on the debt policy. Of course, we understand that the regions will have to bear some additional costs, including financial costs to acquire ratings. They will have to pay to the stock exchange. It will require a lot of housekeeping matters to be dealt with, such as, for instance, building effective teams that will be managing regional debt. But we all believe that these costs will lead to a drop in prices of these debentures for the issuers.
Thank you very much, Konstantin, for this in-depth analysis. You spoke a lot about Ministry of Finance, innovations, and the problems in this market segment. But it means that these amendments which were made and innovations in the budget code are aimed mostly at enhancing of macroeconomic stabilization at the regional level. We have comments here also. Also, there were comments from Mr. Oreshkin. He spoke about this, that possibly within this transfer from macroeconomic stabilization till macroeconomic growth, activation of macroeconomic growth, we could give an opportunity for the regions to accumulate higher budget deficits, and then in this case will stimulate economic growth. Maybe we'll have also tax benefits and so on. What do you think about this? Maybe here we can use the same logic which was used Russian Federation as a borrower. When we achieve macroeconomic budget stabilization, financial opportunities also became wider, and we made everything to improve our debt situation. Our debt situation became more positive. When we had these opportunities, we shortened the volume of sovereign debt, also external debt. We took a lot of measures, and today, even if it's needed, if we need to increase the volume of borrowings, which happened since last year, still we had a lot of programs of internal domestic borrowings, and it doesn't mean that we run too many risks linked with that volume. I think the same logic here exists for the regions. Now it's a very good time to implement all innovations in life, all amendments, and so this is needed to be done when the situation with regional debt is better. Now, it doesn't mean that everything is very good, but still today it's quite a favorable thing and favorable period within which we can create a tool which will help us to avoid extreme situations and crisis situation. Because within several years, it has been spoken about quite a lot. And now at the so we already made this as a law, and if regions can really accelerate the volumes of borrowings, it's possible. but still there are restrictions for this, and the budget code has said it. Okay, that's clear. Thank you very much. Now I would like to move from one regulator to another one. I would like to ask the representative of Central Bank this question. My question is to Helena. So Konstantin spoke about practice of regional bond allocation. What channels of regional bond distribution are optimum? Thank you very much, Yaroslav. A good day, good afternoon, colleagues. I like this topic of subfederal debt. I think it's a very promising topic, and I heard once again the level of a high level of Ministry of Finance policy. Also, I think now that this topic will be given a new impetus for active development. Konstantin also has said that now it's a very good time to tackle this topic. Now, speaking about so first of all, I should speak to whom we sell and who buys bonds. That's very important because they define the product configuration. And also we have two major groups in institutional investors, banks and funds, and also retail investors. And the second category, retail investors. So 2 years ago it was quite exotic for large Russian players, but during these 2 last years we had a huge change here because deposits made up about 30 trillions. And participants of financial markets are also quite worried about this. The deposit rates go down, and this 30 trillion now are moving. Now it is clear that this is the beginning of the process, and then it will be even more active. This 30 trillion should become more, profitable. This process cannot be ignored anymore. This is a new category, which is, not started very well. But it's evident if a person had a lot of deposits, it's very difficult to propose him someone else. Maybe we should propose him quasi-deposit tool. Because a person can go away from the market if he is disappointed. Our colleagues from Ministry of Finance reconstructed this tool with the use of the best international practices. And so what can we offer to retail investors? Because sometimes you can hear the word bond, for the first time, and so this person can go away from the security, and that's why this quasi-deposit gives us an opportunity to make this gradual transfer to the, other securities. And the good region. Ministry of Finance did everything for you. We produced a lot of documents. We have ready tools. You just take these documents and use them. And I think for regions now it will be easier to do this. It's better than to be a pioneer at this market. Now let's proceed to another topic. Where should we catch this investor, and how can we sell these bonds to him? The most efficient sellers are banks. They So I like this example. In Europe, they tried to sell Samsung TV sets through bank sectors, and then they found out the banks sold it very quicker than Samsung shops. This channel is efficient and effective, but not always cheap. Also, banks have a conflict of interests. We made two control purchases, and we tried. We tried to buy original bonds in Asian bank. And we had 50-50. For the first time, we sold everything, and for the second time, we just said we don't need so that you don't need these original bonds. We have good products from our bank, and this conflict of interest is always here, and it's natural. That's why today also digitalization is becoming hygienic norm. If you want to work with retail and you can't sell online, so you can't be here. That's why I should mention about the marketplace project. A new regulation is being developed, which helps to make online sales more productive, more efficient. And it will look like this. Here at the stage we have Moscow region, they have a site, and this project can make such a section by the bonds of our bank. It's simple, but again, behind this there is a lot of work, changes in the regulations, and we are finalizing these changes. So then stock exchange bonds, when a person uses these tools, he also has an interest to other products, he has some needs to invest long-term, or so he understands already something about them, he has already some requirements, he understands how he can use these other tools. In this case, he goes to a stock exchange, and this stock exchange channel for issues is basic and very understandable. And for today, this is like the basics, the main source. Yaroslav also asked about the question about auctions. What can they give to us? Auctions give us an opportunity to refuse from the services of the organizers. We will not pay them fees. As Konstantin has said, you go to the auction and the conditions of placement will be better, the market rate, and also so the when there are the auditors, it's easier to prove all these rates. These are good, these are advantages, but what do you pay to Denis? So Denis, you are the one representatives from the bank. You pay Denis not only because of document preparation, because it is standard, usually. And you don't pay him for this document preparation. You pay organizers for looking for the investors. They find someone for whom you can sell your securities. And if your securities are always at the market, you have good liquidity, customers are proactive. They come to brokers and they say that tomorrow we'll have the securities, and this fee should not be paid to organizers. If securities are not so liquid, in this case, the only danger here can be that at the moment of placement, when you go to the auction, you will not enough, demand concentration. But it's better to check this empirically And I think some regions will check it, will try it. It's better if they check this all the time. And many regions. Yes, and maybe also it makes sense to have frequency. Maybe there should be the day of the regions. For example, on the first date of the month, the regions go to the market. And here we can think about something. We have this a very good day, Wednesday, same day of the week, Wednesday. Thank you very much, Елена.
As far as I understand, we should start speaking about market players. But before I give the floor to Denise, let me please give the floor to the representative of Moscow Stock Exchange, Anna Kuznetsova. I would like to know your opinion on the development of subfederal debt market. Maybe you have some silver bullet solution for this market, an ideal model. Well, we all know what is the ideal model. It is good to be healthy and rich, and it is bad to be ill and poor. I believe that today the result that we see on the subfederal debt market is something that we should praise the team of the Ministry for Finance for. You know, while he was speaking, while Konstantin was speaking, I hope that we will have investors and every other player that we need on the market very soon. And I was wondering how much time we will need to do that. And I would like to refer to what Konstantin said. It is true that today we have a new kind of investors, and banks behave differently. Before, banks were present across sectors on the market of corporate debt, of subfederal debt, and its share was quite significant. Today that is not the case. We have new investors. For example, pension funds who have quite a lot of money, despite the fact that they do not receive new money, but they have their income because they reinvest. They are not very active investors because they would buy a security and hold on to it. We do not really see them on the secondary market, but they are present on the primary market. Managing companies hold quite a lot of money, and this industry has been growing recently, and they all participate in placements. They accounted for more than 42%, though the average market figure is lower. Of course, the federal loan is interesting for many investors because the yield is bigger. That is the reason why the secondary market is not that active, because the majority of portfolios, around 80%, are long-term portfolios, and they do not enter the secondary market. So when we're speaking about secondary market, we have only 20% of debt there, because there are not many new placements, and these tools are very attractive for all of the investors. We do not see many individuals when it comes to subfederal debt market, not even when it comes to sovereign debt. They actively work on corporate debt market and on the secondary market. You know that individuals account for 12–13% on the primary market, which is quite a significant share, because the circulation is very significant there. we do not have enough distribution channels for legal entity, for individuals to take part in all of the underwritings and all of the placements. Banks are very active because it is easy for them to sell it to their clients. I believe that those figures will change. It is true that the industry has been changing throughout the last 2 years, and those changes will continue. In August, we had an individual investment account worth of 1 million, and that is something that we should praise the Ministry of Finance for, because that is what happened amid decreasing interest rates and deposit rates. They stimulated investment, and I believe that in the upcoming 2 years we will be seeing more of this trend, because now there's an opportunity to remotely open an account, to go through identification remotely. These technologies were first made available by brokerage firms. Now banks have such products, and today we register around 100,000 new clients. The majority of them are coming from banks, so yes, we need bank products. They should be on the market. Speaking about auctions, while preparing to this conference, we looked at when the last auction was held for municipal and federal debt. It was way back in time. We believe that sub-federal debt is very promising in terms of carrying out auctions, especially for those issuers who are known publicly. Of course, if the issuer goes for the initial placement, there might be some question, but if the issuer has history, then this placement is pretty promising. If you look at the way the Ministry for Finance has been behaving lately, when there is a new placement, extraordinary placement, they're very interested in how the market will react to this product. But if the issuer is well known, the auction is a very relevant tool. I believe placements should be regular, following the curve, and attracting money on the market is not a one-time activity. When you issue your bonds and then you have your money, it is very important to keep in touch with your investors. And in this case, chapeau to the Finance Ministry, because I believe that this is one of the best issuers on the debt market, because they communicate with investors, they receive feedbacks, they listen to their investors, and I believe that all of the issuers, including sub-federal ones, should follow this model. Now let me speak a little bit about the following, the December problem. It turns out that on the market of sub-federal municipal debt, we have this December problem, because all of the placements normally are carried out in the last quarter, and that is why this period is very hard for us, because sometimes we are not aware of all of the surprises that are in store for us. For example, this year it happened on the 31st of December. I suggest we do it all before the 31st of December for us to be able to plan for 2020. Now on to distribution channels. Maybe we are not fast enough, but we are moving steadily towards digital channels. We have 2 lead generations. We have a brokerage one. That was our pilot project. And today we use it. So what is the essence of this project? We have a lot of projects for individuals, starting with webinars and workshops, both remote seminars and on-site seminars. And the most popular ones are: how do you find a broker and what is dividend trading. Moscow Stock Exchange employees, they're of course looking forward to know how to find the right broker. In this case, we have a person and we can refer this person to a broker. So that is what we have been doing. We already had our first integration. I won't be saying with whom, but today on this platform you can open your brokerage account with one of the major Russian brokers. Yelena didn't speak about this because probably somehow she thought I would speak about it. But using projects that we have deposits and OFZ bonds for individual, for the population. And using our projects, using our services, we would be able to sell OFZ treasury bills to the general public without these people having to open a brokerage account. And I believe that such a way of working with people will change the market, and they will change metrics that investors use. But I believe that issuing will be successful if investors are well balanced out. Because investors are looking at it with utmost attention, because only then you will have an effective process of issuing bonds. So it goes without saying that we uphold using digital technologies. We had quite a difficult discussion when on our website we tried to work to attract investors, retail investors, and the placement was corporate one. You know, I'm not a fan of OFZ bills because it is not a circulating product for me. An investor cannot couple its income with other income. But I believe that this product played a huge part for our market when we speak about financial literacy of, first of all, of bank employees, because normally deposit employees, those who specialized in deposits, they would never sell investment products, but now they do. So I believe that lessons learned should be really used to its full extent. That would be it for me. Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much indeed. It was very interesting to listen to you. And now I would like to give the floor to Denise. I believe I shouldn't be even asking any questions. Thank you. Thank you so much. There are actually lots of questions. Well, I will try to speak on behalf of our banking community. So the first question is, what are banks getting paid for and by whom? So these are issuers who pay us because we basically hold their hand and walk the whole path down with them. So we help them to carry out deals. Let us imagine we're working with a region. There are 85 of them in our country. Does any one of you know how many issuers we have on our market? 119. The figure is not that big.
So we have worked with 35 issuers and 85 centers of decision making. You can see here Konstantin, and he has a team. What is done at the Russian market? Maybe is partially done by him also. And of course, we had different periods at our market, but here again now we have a good working mechanism, and I can feel some kind of frustration why it doesn't work at the same level at the subfederal level, because there are no KPIs. It works there as it works. We faced it, and honestly speaking, in 2014, when I decided to go to regions in 1 year, I realized that it's very difficult to do quicker. And the simplest solution was to transfer to bonds. The same loans, but maybe someone can buy them. The second question, those people who can buy, who pays them? I think that the banks, those banks pay them who has two things, bid and offer. The same investor, he pays to us, he pays us for us giving him these quotes. And the average volume of issues of subfederal bonds, how can it be 10 billion, 15 billion, how do you think? 437. So these are quite not liquid issues. So it's very difficult to go there. We have only 29 regions who have their own curve, more than 1 point, more than one each issue. And the biggest issues we have in St. Petersburg, Moscow, and Moscow region 25, and also regions like Krasnoyarsk, 12. Novosibirsk region, the same volume. So the issues are small. So secondly, when we speak about this, why investors can't go there to these issues? Most issues are amortized. Investors don't like to buy amortization. After the first payment, everybody stops to buy something, and securities are dead after this. There are colleagues here which can prove this. Who can prove this? Why are regions afraid to become not amortized issues? Because there is no guarantee of so we can see we can have this question: if this will be me, and if again there will be some disaster. It's like a vicious circle. In this case, there is a question: who will make a bid and offer for these regions? These are credit limits. And then, in this case, we have a question to the bank: what motivations do banks have to put these credit limits? No motivation. This is purely motivation of some separate people who want, players who want to develop markets, and they put bid and offer. And then there is a question: what to do? What the Ministry of Finance did? Honestly speaking, today I wanted to participate because I'm here with us. In my heart, this is a big resource of our market. Today, at this market, Mr. Pantyushin also here, Konstantin Osbata, of course, how many foreigners also holds of that in their hands? 2 trillion. 30% of our market is at the hands of the foreigners. So this is a unique planned work led to this, that we have long-term investors. Can these investors come to bond market? So here the figures from the point of view of the volumes which are here at the regional level, say that, yes, the potential is big. And what should we do for this? We can come back to what we have done in 2012 with taxes for foreigners. Today it's not so simple, not a simple solution. Yes, we do this. We need to make some avatar stories to understand how it is happening. And so now Ministry of Finance goes around the world. Do we have today interest towards this? He's just come from London. But there are bonuses also, and good bonuses. So the second resource, bonds for people, for population, for just people. And a simple question, Konstantin spoke about this. How can we find this solution? Lina said that auctions, not auctions, but investors should be attracted here. So every year we want to see the volume of money of people on the mattresses. We always calculate this money about 10 trillion. And half is in foreign currency, half in rubles. So this money is not working in the economy. We can be happy that we have 1 million of individual accounts, but only 100,000 of active players at the market. We have 700, maybe. I just see that active player, it's not only those who bought something once per year. Here I mean people who monitor the market, pays and buys and sells. Why do people living in the regions, why should they buy bonds in their regions? So what can we offer them for them to get money from the deposits or from the pockets and to invest this money? 7.5 trillion of non-budget financing is needed to for national projects, and this maybe will stimulate the work of banks. First of all, I speak about private state partnership. You know, if you can see that the infrastructure is developing and so there is bank financing for this, or budget helps. I think these options are also to earn. We tested this in Yamal, where, honestly speaking, in 2014-2015, nobody wanted to discuss bonds, only loans. They did not want bonds at all. Gazprom is working there. Yes, maybe it could be done, but nothing could help. But the change should be created. If you build social objects and spend budget money for them, so in this case, you can also involve a private investor. First, we made regional investors, then bonds for population for 1 billion, and we paid more for regions here. So we then could pay them, could buy them back. And the model now is offered by Ministry of Finance. And the same year, we issued bonds for a construction company, and then the region wanted to buy this back, and 24 private investors participated in this project. 20 who bought bonds of the region itself. This is not a showcase, but we never have something else in the country. So this was the only case where we, you know, had the whole chain. So now I like that now we pay so much attention to this topic. I support people, speakers who expressed their opinions here. Any initiative is good. Because we have so big volumes, goals in our country. We have only 3 issues per year. This is what I have wanted to say. But why do we get money? I think the market here exceeds. I'm ready to answer some other questions. Thank you very much, Dennis. Now let's go to the regions themselves. And now I would like to ask Ekaterina to speak about new amendments and new conditions. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank my colleagues, the colleagues from the Ministry of Finance of Russia, for the invitation to become a participant of this discussion. For me, it's very interesting, and so I've heard about this long-term market, the market of subjects, but I am a person who has to develop and form this market. What can I say to you? First of all, I want to start with the reference of the first thesis that the Ministry of Finance has this category of debt stability for subjects. Maybe after this, it will be simpler for us. Now we have ratings. We have Moody's, Acra, Fitch's, and this year in Moscow region, these ratings are increased. The subjects issues bonds, and this also will be our indicator because it will show. It will be an indicator for investors, additional indicator, so he will know what regions are better, and this will be a good competition. So here we'll know what teams work here, what the debt portfolio regions have. Secondly, I am the first deputy of Ministry of Economy of Finances in Moscow region, and this is in Moscow region. This is the one ministry, and it forms the resources. Also, it is responsible for economy development. And when we speak about our debt policy, so first we are thinking where to invest this money. We analyze whether we can really invest them into new social objects. And also we try to understand how much we can borrow to speed up our achievement of our economic goals, which we have. And our debt portfolio is increasing, but it has quite a moderate level, and we always monitor the situation because now we are in the first stable group of Ministry of Finance. That's why we have always a risk-oriented approach. So I would like to say that now for more than 5 years we have debt policy at the level of subjects. So this is our main document in which we have the main guidelines, the main principles, what tools we'll use. This is our main guidelines. For example, diversification of portfolio is important, transparency, using of new tools, appropriate level of debt, and also expenditure. So then when we are thinking about further development, we mostly look at our guidelines. Now I would like to speak about the tools. We are in the regions, we are among the regions which work in this area. Last week we allocated our bond borrowings, and I think this placement was quite successful, and the share of these bonds in our portfolio about 40%. That's why we try to diversify, and between bonds and loans we choose the securities, depending on some criteria. And of course, bonds for us are important. We think that this is like one of the main key tools for us. When we speak about bonds, we also now work with the Ministry of Finance of Russia, and we are planning to issue bonds for people. This is not only a fiscal issue, mostly this is the issue of financial literacy for people, and I think this is our goal to develop it. For us, it's very important to evaluate the size of this market, because then private investors can spend their money for regions development. And we would like to test this situation, and investors can buy these bonds with different levels of income.
And it is very important to use digital channels, because we all live in our smartphones, and we understand that if you can't buy something in 3 taps, that is not enough. Today I tried to buy a bond, but I didn't finalize the purchase because it took too much time. So we are following closely the development of digital channels, and of course we will make them available on our website to purchase bonds. When we're talking about bonds for individuals, there are additional points to be considered. We have a lot of PPP projects, public-private partnership projects, and we are now thinking on how we can issue green bonds, infrastructure bonds, because today that is a very important field of work. And if we are considering issuing bonds for the population, then we should of course think about steps that we are going to take next. Looking back, I would like to say that we try to issue bonds regularly. Sometimes we fail to do so, but we do our best, because if we want to have the right pool of investors, if we want the market to be dynamic and to be of a certain size, then all of the market players should be regular for us to have a long-term case. We do not want to see this activity spiral in 5 years' time, then once more in others 5 years' time. And of course I'll be glad to take up your questions. But you don't hold auctions, not yet. Thank you. During our conversation today, we discussed issues and problems of the subfederal debt market. We discussed the reasons why the activity on this market has been low. Probably you could give us forecasts, dear speakers, for the next year. Will we see a growth of the subfederal debt market? I would like each speaker to give his or her forecast. We're speaking about regional segment, right? Yes, we do. I think if we use the next year, and I've already mentioned that that will be a transitional year. If we use it to test out all of the new tools and mechanisms, that would be very nice. I believe we shouldn't expect everybody suddenly coming to a consensus and doing what we should be doing right away. There are certain issues that regions will face, both financial, administrative, that the regions will have to deal with. But we have only one way forward, because this managing debt can be compared to a good gardener. If you plant a flower, you should tend to it. You cannot simply issue bonds once a year and forget about it. You should do it on a permanent basis. Only after that it will yield results, it will yield fruit that you would want to see. That is a constant work. I would like to see the circulation growing by at least 100 billion. I do hope that the fourth quarter of this year will be more active than the last 3 months, and it would be nice to see new issuers in 2020 and to see old issuers being more active. Of course, you all expect me to say something that would sound like a motto, say let's grow threefold, but I believe we should be careful. We should avoid making mistakes and build a big public federal debt market. Speaking on behalf of the Moscow region, let me just tell you that we will play our part in increasing the size of this market, and in the next budget cycle we will increase our bond issue, and we will try to use this tool as actively as possible. To build on your metaphor of a gardener, I believe that in our garden we won't be simply growing potato, so we won't simply be having one plant. No, it will be a full-fledged garden or a bed of flowers, whatever you like. I truly believe that regional products have this emotional segment. Denise spoke about it when we spoke about kindergartens, and Ekaterina spoke about it when she spoke about green bonds. I believe that the population will be glad to have income which is bigger than if they simply deposit money. I know that it is pretty hard for the regions to issue target bonds, but it is very nice if they could at least show what they use this money for. And it would be nice if people do not only have their yield, but if they see what this money are being used for, that they paid for these bonds. This will positively influence the loyalty of people, and it is right when people see what their money are being used to do, and they have this emotional tie to this. Probably we won't be seeing it next year, but we'll be seeing it in the future, because big deals are pretty hard to carry out. My question goes to Anna, Moscow Stock Exchange. Anna, you are speaking about credit supply. So for what share do bonds account? Well, if you're speaking about bonds with Eurobonds, I like the figure with Eurobonds, actually. Okay, it's 28%. Okay, 28%. 7.5 trillion non-budget money were allocated for national projects until 2024. That is a wonderful business case, isn't it? Let us multiply it by 30%. It is more than 2 trillion that should enter the market. We've been speaking about 1/3 today. In this worst-case scenario, the region will have at least 1/3 on the capital market. That is speaking about business case. Speaking about personal responsibility, I believe that we shouldn't be in any hurry in next year. It will be a transitional year. We should have 1 or 2 success stories next year. And I want one of the success stories to be the success story of the Moscow region. And if we continue with this garden metaphor, then the Moscow region is a spruce. And I do hope that it will turn into a Christmas tree, richly decorated, and that there will be so many public-private partnership projects in the Moscow region, because in our country we do not have that many regions that have the word Moscow in their name. And foreign investors, when they see this word, they understand that it's all about the central part of our country. So I wish that next year the Moscow region will be one of the success cases, and we're ready to dedicate the whole year to it. Denis suggests we grow fourfold. That's true. Colleagues, we have just a couple of minutes, and we have some time for probably just one question, if there are some questions. If there are no questions, let me please draw some conclusions. As our speakers were saying, we can say that yes, there will be changes that will contribute to further macroeconomic stability at the regional level, which is very important. But at the same time, there are hopes that this segment, I'm referring to the regional debt market, will have new impetuses for development. As Konstantin said, a lot depends on regions, on how active they are, on how innovative they are. And it is very nice to see that despite all of the difficulties that we face on the market, there are new tools, there are new mechanisms, and we will be seeing more of it in the foreseeable future next year. And that is the time for us to wrap up our discussion and to thank our speakers for this discussion and to thank our audience for staying with us until the very end of the forum, listening to us. Thank you. That was a very nice panel discussion, innit? Thank you.